sometimes you have a celebrity and they're just like the face
Right.
of that brand, but they're not really as involved. It sounds like Jennifer Lopez
is Jennifer's
100% involved in this.
Exactly. And this is her company that, you know, she has the ideas that she like where she wants to go with it. You know, Jennifer wanted to create a custom bottle. So that was a whole period of time. So the bottle's beautiful and really brings to heart what is meaningful to her. You know, there's we redid, she wanted some sort of homage to the Bronx crest because that's always remembering where she's from. New York, and then there's a lion and a lioness because she's a Leo, and you know, so there's just all these little pieces, and so having, you know, making the bottle, and then really making sure that we could deliver the cocktails that we wanted, and making sure we get the best ingredients to make sure that when you open that, you taste what the quality. So that took some time.
Oh my gracious.
Even back in high school, Jennifer inspired more than
Cambié la imagen por vender discos.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga.
Are you from Puerto Rico?
I was born here, but my family's from Puerto Rico. So my parents were born there and moved here to New York, and we went back every summer to visit and spend with family. And so that was kind of our growing up as kids.
Do you have like a big family?
Well, we're 4 girls in my family. In
Me
the immediate
too.
Family, so.
Okay.
So a lot of craziness in our household.
So you know all about sharing and all the things.
For sure. We had like 1.5 bathrooms in our house, so growing up. So that was a lot of like
where in New York?
So we were Windsor Terrace, in Brooklyn, and then my dad moved out. He got transferred for work, and we ended up outside of Princeton, New Jersey, and Monmouth Junction. So that's where we spent some time there, and then I moved back to go to school to come to Columbia, and then I stayed here.
Okay, all right. So there's a lot of So I do want to ask
back and forth. Yeah.
Where is your family from in Puerto Rico?
Sure. Yeah, my mom is from Quebradillas, and that's part of the island. My father was in Bayamon and Barranquitas, so he actually spent some time in Rexville and Bayamon, and then he went to high school up in Barranquitas, but a lot of his family was from both areas, so you know, we had a little bit of the campo and spent our time up there running around chasing chickens as kids.
I always say you have like a whole different experience, like just like living in Puerto Rico. Right. It's like it's just different. It's like the polar opposite. I feel like because I was born in Puerto Rico, when I came to New York, it was just like so fast paced. So like everything was just like a shock for me. Like I really had like this shock culture value.
Right.
Just because, I don't know, I didn't speak the language.
Right.
I didn't.
Complicated.
Yeah, I didn't speak English. So that was like the first thing. And then also, I always say like New York Minute is like a real thing. It's so a real,
true.
like you don't see it until you live here, but like a New York Minute is a real thing.
I mean, I love New York because of that, and I think you kind of bring up some really good points. It's a place you get here, and it's just so incredibly overwhelming. And it's like, you know, I talk to my mom and dad a lot about when they came here. My dad was back and forth a lot over his childhood, so he ended up finishing high school in Puerto Rico. But my mom moved here at 3-4 years old, you know, and she's like, we didn't speak the language. They spoke Spanish only in the household. And so a lot of it was, you know, constantly translating and, you know, adapting into what a New York culture was. But you had also like, you know, everyone went out together. It's like your whole family went out together. She's like up through high school, we were going to the, you know, dance clubs, and my parents would be there because that's where everyone's going out to salsa and dance, and like it's the whole family affair. So it's a very different way of growing up. But you know, I'm so happy that like there was a foundation here, because I feel like once it's in your blood and you get New York and you take it with you everywhere. And I think that's part of what the beauty of it is, and that drive that I don't think you don't get it elsewhere. You know, that's the thing. Like you can recognize someone who's been a New Yorker when you meet them. You're like, 100%. I see it. I see you. I see who you are. That energy. So it's nice to see people carry that with them.
Yeah, I always say when I watch Sex and the City and Carrie Bradshaw, I'm like, I'm the Latina Carrie Bradshaw, because I understood the whole scenario. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like I love New York.
Right.
Like no matter where I go, I'm just like, nah, like there's certain things that you only get in New York.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I just, shout out to New York.
Shout out to New York.
Shout out to New York. We have Lynnette Marrero here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I was really excited to be a part of this. I think this is a really, growing up Latina means so many things for a lot of different people. And I think it's such a great exploration of culture and what we all go through and how we identify. And that, which is great, has really changed a lot in many years, I think, over the course of time of how people, view us and the power, I would say, the Latina power is really, I feel like we're coming into our own and having that opportunity. So I love having these conversations and just talking about who we are, what we do, and how it affects our lives. And I think it's something that you carry with you and it's something to be very proud of. And so I'm so fortunate. I consider it a badge of honor.
Thank you. I want to get to know like baby Lynnette.
Yeah.
I always say that. I'm like, because for just everyone that's listening and everybody's watching on the YouTube and listening on the audio side, I really want to, I guess, understand the woman that you are today.
Right.
And all the accomplishments. No, because you really, you're doing like pretty incredible things. And so in order for me to understand the woman that you are today, I need to understand your earliest years. So what do you remember from like your earliest childhood memories? What was that Sala vibe like? Like paint us that picture.
Well, I am one of 4 girls in my family. I'm third, and it's Jeanette, Annette, Lynette, and Antoinette.
No.
So my parents did it. They kept going with it. And so there's a lot to unpack there of just who I am as a kid. So there was a lot of identifying as a group my whole life and being a part of, the Net Sisters. And lots of singing and dancing in my household. The Sala vibes were, choreographing routines in our living room. Like, everything started with a cartwheel across the floor and then one comes back and then playing with like the bands and doing all the things. Right. There was a lot of singing, dancing, and a lot of, fun in the house. And my mom was young, she had 4 kids by 30, and so it's, I think when you look at, I look at it now, I'm like, my mom was a kid, and so she brought this fun, always singing, always making a game out of things in our house. So I feel like that was the biggest thing we did. And so that was always a part of our lives. So I did choir, I did all the things, I was a very busy kid. I was like, I want to do all the stuff and be a part of the things and, stand, as you're one of 4, you're like, what's going to make me stand out? And I'd be like, hey, I'm this one. Look at me. I'm not the middle child. We're splitting the middle. I'm going to stand out. So a lot of it was a lot of performing and singing and dancing and all those things. And then
so you was already in the entertainment industry. In your mind, you were there.
I was there. That was like the whole thing. I was like, I loved it. I loved watching, we'd watch old movies and all this stuff on TV. Like we were like gobble down AMC and watch all these, all the old movie musicals. And that was always fun. So I think it's like, there's a lot of that comes through.
What type of music were you listening to? I'm always interested.
We had a lot of, because my older sister would bring a lot of the music into the house. So I remember the very first Michael Jackson's Thriller album because we actually had a lot of records growing up. So we would go through my parents' albums and there was very eclectic. It was a lot of things like the Shirelles, Michael Jackson. Then you'd have some, Elvis Presley, and then you'd have some Latin music. It was very eclectic growing up, and then lots of pop. Whatever was on the radio that I could belt to, was pretty much the music. And, I was into all of the big pop singers, Whitney, Mariah. I was like, bring it on. I want to be sit here and sing at the top of my lungs.
I love that. So you were pretty much a musical family. You guys would kind of join in on that type of level. And nice. What about novelas? Did you watch novelas? Were you into sitcoms and things like that? Or
I think most kids, we were watching all the basic stuff that everyone was watching, like Fresh Prince and Family Matters and all that. Exactly, the TGIF. Every summer we spent in Puerto Rico. So my older sister got into the novelas a little bit more because, we'd be stuck there and be like, the only thing on TV is, novelas or the videotapes we had, which were all Disney movies. So we'd watch, whatever we had. For me, I wasn't quite as interested in those as much. But, Jeanette, the oldest, she loved watching them. And I was like, I don't know if these are my thing. They're a little too dramatic.
Yeah.
I want
So
more
what were
fun.
you gravitating towards? I'm just interested in hearing that.
I mean, I was like the
what were like your
Disney-
hobbies and stuff?
My hobbies was all doing choir, singing. I played some sports. I did some, not soccer. I kind of wish that soccer was a bigger thing. I did a little softball, basketball.
Okay.
But I was really interested mostly in the singing and dancing and doing the musicals and all this stuff at school. Like definitely high school drama club kid.
I went to performing arts high school, so
there
I
you
know,
go. So
and
you
I went to
know.
school for drama, so
Ooh, so you were
that was a
deep.
fun time for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to find all of that, which was, picking those things up and really wanting to, excel. Like I'd find the music classes I wanted to take and, I'd bring it to my mom, be like, all right, I want to take these classes. Can we do it? And there was a lot of, that I would find it for myself, which was good.
What drew you to that? Like, what was it that like just you?
I don't
Because it
know.
sounds like you had like this love for the entertainment.
I mean, I
guess,
think
like-
my mom and like our family was just, I'd watch my mom be very expressive and, she would always sing. And I feel like, my mom had like a little secret hidden talent.
Yeah.
But obviously she got married and had kids. And so I kind of think it was a little bit of like fulfilling, I would just see how music played in our lives. We'd all harmonize. And for me, it was just a path that I really was taken with. And I really pushed for it. My oldest sister, she was a dancer and she did more of like the cruise ships and stuff when she got out of school. I went more the singer route and wanted to do more like Broadway musicals and things like that. So when I came out to New York to school, I actually auditioned for NYU Cap 21 and I thought I was going to go to that program, but instead I went to Columbia, which for me was where I kind of wanted to come back to New York with an idea of like a real campus and live that. And it's beautiful up there. And I would audition while I was in school and actually booked my first show my sophomore year. And so I was like doing a brand new musical by Stephen Schwartz. I was doing a Paper Mill Playhouse. So I'd take the van. I'd have to miss a class every Wednesday, one of my psychology classes. So I had to take that class, pass fail that year.
Right.
Because I had to miss it every Wednesday for the matinee. So we'd all hop in a van. We'd go out there. But it was just, there was something about, again, that New York drive, that moment, you're just like, I'm going to make all these things happen. But there was also a part of my brain that was like, but I do want to go to a school and get a degree in something else as well. So
do you feel like you were torn with like what you, or like who you wanted to be when you like,
yeah, I mean,
reaching like your older years and you actually grow up and you're like, because I feel like I always wanted to be an actress, but that didn't work out. It didn't pan out like that for me. But
and I think there's something about, I had that part of my career. So I did, shows. I was doing off Broadway and doing all these things and booking work and doing well at regional. But there was a part of like, when you finally like decide to give it up, there was a point I was like, a lot of it's national tours and I'm on the road a lot and I didn't necessarily want to do that. And so I found the same creative passion and artistry into where I am now in my career, which is kind of funny. It's like I do more on camera.
I want to get into that.
I do more on camera stuff now. It's so funny. I'm like, well, all that training, everything I had came in, but I found it behind the bar and doing mixology and crafting and creating. And that's another part of coming from my household and thinking about the culture, right? So I think, growing up Latina, you are exposed at a young age to lots of flavor, lots of tastes, lots of things, like my grandmother would always have the parcha juice and she'd have it like fresh. So she would make it and kamui and you'd taste it. It's a very grown up taste for kids.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of development of flavor and palate. And I just really gravitated towards this liquid art form that gave me a lot of creative outlet. And I was able to feel everything I really enjoyed from from doing the musicals and theater and having this, presentation. It all kind of came back into the same world. So it's kind of funny.
And I want to get into that because I guess where I want to start with this is, what is the difference? And I have my own kind of definition. What is the difference between a mixologist and a bartender?
Right. So it's kind of one of those things. A lot of a lot of mixologists now we are like, oh, we're bartenders. We start as bartenders.
Right.
For me, it's the crafting and creating. So if you're a mixologist, you can be very good at making the drinks and coming up with flavor combinations, things like that. But I think it's so important to have that bartender background because I think, a lot of the creativity and a lot of your development into becoming, I think, someone who can create for others comes through that experience of the service, the act of service, right? And being a bartender and, having that moment of people coming in and creating that guest experience and really understanding what makes someone happy through a liquid art form, right? People come in bars and restaurants for many, many reasons. You're celebrating with people sometimes you're helping them grieve or they're just lonely, especially in places like New York where people barely spend time at home. So it becomes a place for people to gather. And I think there's so much about that psychology of getting to know the people and learning. And then you create something for them. And that feeling of creating a drink for them that they love is really great. And I love that that's the part of it that makes me really happy.
At what age were you like tapping into this art form?
Right. So I got into it a little bit later, which is funny. So I didn't bartend in college. I was performing. I was acting. And when I graduated college, I didn't want to be the cliche waiter actor. I was like, ugh, this is a thing. People, will always ask you, what do you really do, et cetera. And I didn't want to do that. So I was doing like temping in offices and things like that and making my schedule that way. And then 9/11 happened. I was like, well, I'm never going to be in an office. And I was actually in California doing a pre-Broadway show. And we were doing an out-of-town trial. So I came back to New York. I was like, all right, I'm going to figure out this waiter thing. I'm gonna figure it out. So somehow I managed to I walked into a wine bar on Clinton Street. The owner was a Constantine, Greek Puerto Rican. And I'm like, I just figured it out. I'm like, okay, let's figure out how to get a job in this place. Yeah. And I could tell he knew I didn't have a lot of experience, but I had the drive and the art. And so they were willing to teach me everything I needed to know. And I really was so lucky to be in that space because I didn't know that this little wine bar in Clinton Street, I would meet all these culinary geniuses would walk in. Wiley Dufresne was just opening WD-50 down the block. And the people who came through would change the course of my life. And then from there, I started working at a cocktail lounge. And that was the first part of getting into, going from wine into crazy, colorful cocktails and drinks. I'm like, this is really cool. And that was a predominantly women team at that place, Sabar. And my friend Amber was like, I'm going to start teaching you the bar. I think you can figure this out. And so she would start training me and teaching me different drinks after work. And then we started going to different cocktail bars. And there was one across town that had just opened. It was called the Flatiron Lounge. And Julie Reiner, who was the famed bartender mixologist, she's on Drink Masters. She's one of the judges. And she opened this beautiful bar that, it was very much inspired by classic cocktails, but she brought a lot of her background in Hawaii. So beautifully colored drinks and these tropical cocktails. And it really spoke to me. I was like, these are beautiful. And the fact that it was a very powerful women-run company. So I started, I was still doing acting, so I'd go away, do shows, and I kind of stalked her for about a year to get a job there. And so I finally got a job in there, and I was really excited. So I had gone away, did a show, got married, and then came back. And I was like, I'm going to start working here. And I ended up starting there in 2004 and working there for 2.5 years. And then I started getting to restaurant bars. I started a place called Freeman's, still there over on Christie and Rivington over there, famed kind of iconic spot. And again, I managed to get into these places that were very had a moment happening. And so all the bartenders there were really great. And I started to get behind the bar there. And that was really awesome. One of the bartenders from Flatiron Lounge was working there, Toby Maloney. And he was like, you really need to be a bartender. So I got promoted at Flatiron Lounge, but I wanted to work behind the bar more. And so I started working at Freeman's as well. And that's where I fell in love with food and drink and how the combination of those
the pairing. I was going to say that because I do hear that a lot. They'll say well, this steak goes with this and this shrimp goes with this. There is a pairing thing.
I love
that really happens.
I think they're what I fell in love with in that space was the idea of exactly that. You can have cocktails and you can, enjoy them with a meal. And there's this whole idea of completing something and there's a beauty in that. And then that kind of set me on a path of working in restaurant bars. So I opened and did the program here at Llama Inn over in Williamsburg with Chef Eric Ramirez. And that's where I started my time in Peruvian restaurants for 6.5 years and really getting to know, that amazing cuisine and cocktails and building flavor. And I feel like that was where I really got to hone in on a lot of what the complex combinations of flavors and how you can really build and develop. I think you really can see it in the cuisine. And so that's where I started bringing that into drinks. And then I had an opportunity to become and be a part of Delola. So,
I mean, I was going to get into that.
yeah.
Before we get into that, what would you tell your parents? Like, would you tell them like, hey, I'm a bartender? Like, what was like that conversation like? And like, how did they receive that?
I think at first it was not, my parents, I was a very academic child. I was, always, trying to I need straight A's. I'm the kid. I'm going to do that. So I think my parents had a lot more of an aspiration that I was going to be a lawyer or do something like that. And I think that's part of that, immigrant culture, right? Your parents come here, they want you to have every opportunity they didn't have, and they worked really hard and to make sure that I had opportunity, that I had access to education. Whatever it came to education, we could have it. We weren't like getting the brand new clothes. We'd have lots of hand-me-downs, and if we wanted something, we had to like get a job and babysit and do things. But if it came to education, my parents were always willing to make it happen. And I think at first they were like, what is she doing? Because she could be doing theater. And they were always so proud of me. They'd come see my shows and things like that. And they didn't quite understand it. But, in a very traditional sort of way, I think my dad chilled out when I got married. Because in his mind, okay, now you're taken care of, you're supported, and which is a very old school mentality. But, I am very lucky that, I met my partner very young and we grew together, and we're at this amazing point in our life where he did help and support me and allow me to follow my dreams. And now, I'm able to support him at this point and be like, what do you want to do? Like, you spent lots of time like in the corporate world. What makes you happy? Like, you figured that out now. Now it's my turn. And
that's beautiful. I'm so that's the timing of that was perfect. I love that.
And that's that belief. I think you grow and you change, and things, you never know where life is going to lead. And I think there's been a lot of twists and turns in my life, and it's pretty amazing. If I had to map out a career path in my life, it's insane. It's like where it goes, it's like that none of these connect the dots. But when you're in New York City, in a place that all your dreams can happen, there's this amazing thing of being able to hustle and put together like the craziest combinations of jobs and work here. And I think that's awesome. It's very, we make our own pathways. I think what always intrigued me was that, when you're in some place like New York, because everyone's got everything they got to do, right? We pay a lot to be here. It's a hustle. You want to, earn it. And there was just always, everyone was very creative about like what they were doing. And people would do 5 different things. And I think it was funny because like there'd be the, what we now call the portfolio lifestyle, which really is part, but I think it was kind of building at the time. Like, people were originally like, oh, you have to just do one thing. And I'm like, you don't have to do one thing. You do many things, and all these different things become part of who you are. And if you're somebody who has lots of interest, you can achieve that and go out, explore all of them. And so I love that there's opportunity to do that.
How much of this do you attribute to networking, right? Because
100%.
you don't just wake up and just team up with JLO and that's it. Like that, it doesn't work that way. So I'm like curious to, I guess, get the backstory of like, how do you even get to a point where you're now a partner in Delola? Like, how does that work out for you?
I mean, I think you're right. So I think a lot of things go back to connections and networking and being open and being that person. I think, there's a little bit of like that theater background gets you comfortable, like talk to anyone, right? It's all about those, you never know who anyone is. It's treating everyone with respect, and every little connection over time, any encounter over a bar that I had in the past, and really built a bunch of connections through hospitality. And so lucky for me was that, I did a lot of range of things. So I dabbled in being a brand ambassador for a little while. So I was working with Zacapa rum from Guatemala, and I got to work with the master blender, Lorena, and I did that for a couple of years. And that was a whole different set of training. One, learning about and really diving deep into spirits and understanding the storytelling and how to really represent something so big for people. And that really engaged a lot of my skill sets. of being able to paint a picture for people and transport them through a beverage to a place and really let them understand what it's like to be there, and that painting that beautiful picture for them is something incredible. And then they taste the liquid. So I feel like those kind of journeys and stories. And then when I was working through Lama Inn and Lama San with Eric, I got to learn a little more about that too, because I was responsible for carrying, through my liquid arts, an entire culture. That's not my culture. I'm not Peruvian. And I was learning how to be a part of that and how to honor that and bring their recipes together and pay tribute to the ingredients and things like that. So again, telling a story and delivering that. And I think that's where you just start making those contacts. So for me, a big break was getting booked to do masterclass.com and do the first mixology class. So that was amazing. That was a huge break. So that came.
But how do you land that?
They just found me, and I was wondering, I was like, how did they find me? Of all the people, what made them find me? And they reached out on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, what's this? And I looked at Masterclass. I'm like, oh, this looks cool. This is really impressive. I don't know what I'm doing here. And then their recruiter came and met with me, their talent recruiter. And she came to the restaurant. And I made our drinks and we just talked about philosophy. And it was a really great opportunity because they really gave me a lot of liberty. They're like, well, what would you want to teach? And I was like, well, this is such a huge category and making drinks, and you don't have anything on the platform. I have to start from scratch. I have to teach people the basics, right? It's like they have to learn the sauces. It's like being a French culinary. You have to learn the mother's sauces and the different stocks and things and the building parts. So that's where I started, was like, I want to be very traditional. And then they brought in Ryan Chediwardana from Mr. Lion. And we were both initially doing different classes, and I always knew where he was. Like, we didn't realize we both loved culinary so much, and that I didn't realize his mom was a chef. And so we were both very much people who were inspired by our mother's cooking and the cuisine and bringing that into our drinks. So we just had a great dynamic, and we did the class together, and I think it turned out really great because we were two sides of a different coin.
So flawless.
And that just gave me a huge platform. So, the Masterclass family is incredible. So many people I admire on there. Robin Arzon, Martha Stewart's class is great. I love Ron Finley, the gangster gardener. I mean, it's a really wonderful platform. And I think that just gave me a different visual credibility and being out there in a platform that was bigger. So I think that kind of got me on Jennifer's radar, but our other partners.
I'm like, how the hell?
Our other partners, Jenna Fagnan and Ken Austin, they are huge in this industry. They work with The Rock on Terramana, so they're really good at finding the right celebrities to work with. Like, their philosophy is very much about if that the person who comes into it, like you see, right? They have to be very driven. They have to be people who are going to do the project and be an actual part of it.
Right.
So, they had been talking to Jennifer and I had been doing some work for Terramana. I was just doing some things, and I had known them throughout the industry. So it's kind of one of those things, right? You never know what opportunity is going to come up. And so they approached me and they said, we have a project. We think you're perfect for it. So we want, here's the premise. It's we want to make sure that craft cocktails, delicious world-class craft cocktails, can be put in a bottle and sold anywhere. So really, which I love, because I was like, okay, well, that's really democratizing people's access to cocktails, right? And making sure that people can have a delicious drink, affordable. And they're like, we have other rules we want here. We want to make sure that it's also actually a better for you promise, or have an idea of we want to use organic botanicals, we want to use natural coloring, we want to make sure that also we're delivering less calories than a traditional drink and all these other things. So I was like, okay, great, challenge accepted. So I worked on, and this was all over the pandemic. So I made some 3 variations. I was talking, I didn't know who the celebrity was. I was sending it back and I'm getting feedback. And then once there was an initial okay, she liked what you did. Now we're going to tell you who it is. And they're like, it's Jennifer Lopez. And I started to cry. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest thing.
I would cry too.
Well, it's huge.
I would definitely cry.
So then I got to really explore with her and then get to know her better, and then really take the prototypes and really develop them into what is our current line of Delola. And that was just really exciting to be able to talk to someone who's so clear on their vision. I love that, Jennifer was as descriptive as she needed to be. You know, it's like that whole, I was calling it like the best dealer's choice ever, right? In the bar, when someone comes up and they're like, I want this kind of drink, blah, blah, blah.
Like she wasn't indecisive about it.
No, a lot of people, they'll be like, I don't know, I just want something not too sweet. And you're like, okay, well, what's the rest of it? I'm like, I need description. She was really great at things that she likes, things she doesn't like. I'm like, that's so important, like to know that information. So when we crafted it, it was just a really beautiful way to talk with somebody and understand what they wanted and what they wanted to deliver. And for her, she's like, and I really want to make sure that this can be something. She's like, look, it has to be something that I'm okay telling my trainer. I enjoyed it.
Right,
so,
absolutely.
So that was also a big thing, you know, when you're coming down to that. And so it was just a huge opportunity, and it's been a crazy, wild journey. We launched April of this year. And so we're coming into our, you know, first full year of Delola this year. And it's exciting to see, like, you know, where it's gone. Like this fall and winter, we've been focusing a lot on entertaining, and that really resonates with me from coming from the idea of, like, you know, restaurants and what they are, and then how people entertain at home, and how Delola can be a great solution for people. And that's really fun because it's like that nice secret you bring to somebody, and you know, then you have food pairings, and you make a charcuterie board, and I love seeing that kind of being in that place and making things easy for people. I love people making their tablescapes and all the things on TikTok, and then you're like, but then you can make Delola. I know
they've been sharing a lot on TikTok. I'm seeing it all over. There's a couple of things I want to unpack here. So you started what year? Like I'm just interested in, like, how long this actually developed, like how long it took to develop.
Right. So we started, and it took like 2 years. So we started in 2021. So kind of right towards the end of the pandemic / the rewave that came back that winter. So it took us about 2 years to get everything settled, you know, especially at that time. You know, Jennifer wanted to create a custom bottle, so that was a whole period of time. So the bottle's beautiful and really brings to heart what is meaningful to her. You know, there's we redid, she wanted some sort of homage to the Bronx crest, because that's always remembering where she's from. New York, and then there's a lion and a lioness because she's a Leo, and she, you know, so there's just all these little pieces. And so having, you know, making the bottle, and then really making sure that we could deliver the cocktails that we wanted, and making sure we get the best ingredients to make sure that when you open that, you taste the quality. So that took some time.
And then I wanted to know, but you pretty much said it, like how, because sometimes you have a celebrity and they're just like the face.
Right.
Of that brand, but they're not really as involved. It sounds like Jennifer Lopez is
Jennifer's
100% involved in this.
Exactly. And this is her company, that, you know, she has the ideas that she, like, where she wants to go with it, you know, things that I'll create, you know, new ones that I'll create coming out. You know, she throws ideas. She's like, all right, I want to try this. And I'm like, cool. And so, she's completely committed, and that's the difference. So again, like the type of work that my company does is that it only works if it's Jennifer's company, she's driving the ship, and that it's part of it. Because you're right, an endorsement it's not the same. You know, you'll never get the same amount of attention and commitment, and it, you know, that's the thing. What makes something like this successful is the, you know, the validity of, like, her really being a creative force with the company, and that's great. And being able to, you know, you can feel that, and that's the difference. And so, like, every day I get to do something really cool because, you know, of the person I'm learning from, and just, you know, I think the things she does, I really respect. You know, she's worked really hard on everything she ever does. She's definitely, you know, I watch, I'm like, she's a hard worker.
1,000%.
I'm like, how do you get all this done and then still have a family? And it's impressive. But also, I think the things that she's doing for the community are really incredible. You know, I love to see, you know, the idea of giving back to Latinas, and really making sure that there's funding and access, and the different organizations she's supporting are really great. So.
How did we land on the name Delola?
Delola.
Like, let's get the backstory of the name. I love that name, by the way.
So Jennifer's nickname is Lola. So Lola is like the character. She's like, that's the person who I'm dancing on the floor, on the table and having
That's her
fun.
alter ego.
It's her alter ego. And I love that. So Lola, obviously from Lola was the idea. So it was creating a new, it's funny because people don't speak Spanish. They're like, the Lola, it's very pretty. I'm like, well, Lola from Lola, but it's not, it's a pretty word, and it means, so much about like the entertainment and the ease of that and having fun, and we don't take ourselves so seriously. We're like, it's cocktails, entertainment should be fun and delicious, but we want to make sure that you get that quality. So
yeah, I love that Delola is like ready to pour. I actually, over the summer, I had an opportunity to taste the Paloma flavor, which I love. Like, I love, love, love. What would be, like, what's coming up in the near future for Delola? Like, will you guys come out with new flavors? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are looking, our 1 year is in April, so we should, we're constantly coming up with ideas, so we should be working on a new SKU to come out in the future. Right now, we're also just really pushing and working on really sharing still the message of the original 3 with Paloma Rosa. That one, I love the idea with that, because it's a traditional cocktail, but Jennifer really loves elderflower, and I was like, why don't we add it to that drink? And there's such a beauty to that cocktail. And then Bella Berry's been really fun because the Bella Berry is like, there's something about it, a lot of that comes from like the flavor building of a lot of ingredients and flavors. So, Jennifer loves berries. And so like, how do you incorporate that? And how do you get make sure that the berries are fresh and vibrant and fruit forward? And then using the hibiscus and the jamaica to, really give it a grounding and make it more nuanced. So it's like, it's funny because I think it's like, you look at this bright red drink and then you're like, oh wait, that's more sophisticated. And then with L'Orange, it's about really kind of having and embracing, what she originally wanted to have, which was something that reminds me of when, I'm in the coast of Italy and these refreshing and bright colored and delicious drinks that are full fruit and that has that bright orange. And then, the passion fruit comes back to, talking a lot about like, I was like, parcha was so big growing up and that flavor is so good. And so bringing a little bit of that callback from the islands through that cocktail. So, but where you kind of have those same fruits that are bright, fresh, and delicious. So you have that moment with that cocktail.
And then you add your little twist with you making it and the presentation, which I love.
Yeah.
How would you say each flavor in terms of food, what is like the best food pairing for each flavor?
Right. So I think for me, L'Orange, I like to start with that. And to me, that's put out your best charcuterie plate.
Yes.
Have your cheeses, have your meats, and it goes really well, especially if you're using the guava paste on your, with like a manchego.
Girl, you are
beautiful.
making me hungry. You're making me hungry.
It's great. And then I like to move into maybe like a seafood course with Paloma Rosa, because I think you get that really bright zestiness, that citrus, the lime, and there's just like a touch of sea salt, like you just kind of get in the back, and it goes super well with like beautiful like shrimps, oysters, all that kind of like get that raw bar out. And then Bella Berry I like with like roasted smoked meats, kind of that idea of like almost how you have like a fruitier moment with like almost like a barbecue, how you pair that. So really leaning into that with the Bella Berry and having some more like bigger courses like that. So
if you had to give like any tips or like advice to someone who was starting in the spirit industry and they wanted to, develop their own brand, what are some of the things you would say?
One, I mean, developing a brand is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, right?
I mean, I'm super fortunate, that it came to me through obviously such incredible partners who understand this industry. One, I think that's part of it too. It's finding good partners who can do the things you don't do, right? Like you need the business mind. Jenna Fagnan's brilliant. There's so much that you have to do. Ken's a big idea guy, and you need those people who understand, the routes to market. And I've now launched. I also launched a non-alc brand called Aplos in in December 2020. And again, I was approached by those partners, and I was like, well, this is like, I understand what I do. What I do is I'm a liquid creative director. I know how to make the flavors and things like that. But they're really good at marketing, and there's a whole brand world you have to build. And I think, find the people who can help you tell your story, because getting liquid in a bottle is yes, there's a lot of like sourcing and finding the places that'll co-pack, but that's not necessarily the hardest part. You can find that. It's a lot of resources to get something and make a product and things like that. But I think it's telling the people, tell your story. And I've seen it. So many of my friends have launched brands, and watching kind of, when you see people's mistakes and failures, you learn so much. And, I think that there's a lot to finding the right people to partner with you. And I think that's the big part, because it's hard to do it all alone.
Yeah.
So.
What about marketing? Because that's like a big.
Yeah.
No, seriously, like you have to really push this brand out. So like, how involved are you specifically in the marketing of Delola?
Pretty big. I mean, for me, it's it's really being out there, telling the story and delivering, to folks like how easy it is to use. So I spent a lot of time going to lots of local news, radio stations, and just kind of really putting it out there. And that's huge. It's like spreading that message, showing people food pairings and thinking about all of the different parts of it. It's such a big, a big job to tackle. But I love when you love what you're doing, it really satisfies you. And so I love having being tasked with, okay, what's the next thing we're going to do? What's the next pairings? Or what are we going to push? We have an incredible team, and we're small, but we hustle.
Tiny
we're
but mighty.
We're a little startup kind of company, and that's what's great because it takes everyone doing it. And that's why it's fun when Jennifer's making hacks. It's just like, okay, we're going to make the punch. We're going to do that. I'm like, yes, so add all the fruits in there. And it's great to have that as well. Cause then those little fun, hacks, cause we are a bottle cocktail. So the things that add to it are how do you serve it? What are you pairing it with? So it's a different, it's fun cause it's a different kind of puzzle to piece. When I do other cocktail stuff, so even with my non-alc, it's more like I'm coming up with, here's how you use it, here's cocktails you create, because it's a non-alc spirit, so they have to come up with drinks, and that's a different thing from it's already ready for you, but here's how you enjoy it, here's how you bring it to your lifestyle. So I'm learning so much about that, which is really great.
What was the biggest lesson Jennifer Lopez has taught you?
Wow, I mean, I would say I have a tremendous amount of respect for how she handles herself. It's like her life is so exposed, and I think you look at it, even when we launched Delola, everyone has something to say, and I just really respect how she is like, this is my life, I do my thing, and she is so strong and such a force. And you see that, right? With Delola, she's just having fun. And I'm like, wow, yeah, you just keep going. You just keep doing your thing, because if you stopped in your tracks every time somebody had something to say, you wouldn't get anywhere. And I just see her as she perseveres, and she's this is my thing, this is my life, I do what I want to do, and you either get on board or whatever. I don't care. And I love watching that. So it's been really funny watching some of the ideas and the videos she puts up that are making me laugh so hard.
Her last video, she's like, no, I don't even drink.
Funny. Exactly.
It was so genius. I was like, that's perfect. That is
but
perfect.
That's also standing right up to
that is how Jennifer Lopez should answer that question.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I have crazy respect for that. I was I laughed so hard. I was like, wow, that is so funny.
Did she come up with that on her own? Did she?
Yeah. I mean, she's just
that.
But that's the thing. It's the grace.
You have to have fun with it.
At this point, it's you don't get to where she is in her career by, not letting people get to her. And I'm yes, this is you love this company. You really do love these drinks, and who cares what people say?
They're always going to say something.
They're always going to say something. I mean, seriously, that's life. And I'm like, wow, it's, and I think, with social media, it makes it a lot more complicated, but I'm like, yeah, you just persevere and you just stay true to who you are, and who cares what everyone else says?
Absolutely. I wanted to shift a little bit to, so Anna Flores, who we love Anna. She gifted Growing Up Latina with Amiga Circle conversation cards.
Love it.
And so I thought this was so dope because I actually played this the other day, and I said, oh my God, I have to bring it here, and I want to play it with you. So there's 3 decks. There's Heal, Commune, and Grow.
Love it.
So which Which deck do we want to go with?
I think commune.
Commune. Okay.
I think that's
That's your deck. That's the vibes. Okay. All right. Let's go with commune.
Especially like on the the precipice of a new year.
Love it. Love it. All right.
All right. I pick one.
Yep. Ooh. Why am I being stingy with it? Okay.
Ooh.
Okay. What is it?
What helps you feel empowered?
Ooh.
A good one. I mean, I think what makes me feel empowered is the support and love of friends and family. 100%. When you feel like you're supported, then you're empowered to go ahead and be out there and be fierce, and you know that everyone's got your back. And that's the best part. And I feel like I've been on a crazy journey, and all I know is like my friends and my circle have been so supportive, and they're always going to make sure that I can succeed. And so there's no fear when you're like, I have a crew and I have people who are...
You have a village.
You do. You have a family of people, and it's really great. I have a really tight group of friends who, we started out as a workout accountability WhatsApp group at a cocktail festival. And then through
perfect.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
And then through the pandemic, it became like our therapeutic group. And it's women in the hospitality industry. One of them actually no longer is in the hospitality industry. She's going to run the world in politics someday. But it's this really incredible group that we talk about everything. There's nothing that we can't get through. It's like the best advice group. It is just want to share something, and you just know that they're always there. And that's something that's really important.
I'm going to pick one for you.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm going to go with this one. My spirit is telling me to go with this one. Let's see. Ooh, what makes you feel unstoppable?
Ooh.
I like that.
There you go.
Yeah, shout out to We All Grow Latina. I love them.
Exactly. They're amazing. What makes me feel unstoppable? I mean, I think again, it's that same thing. Like I'm not a internal person. I'm a very external person. And I always believe that there's more room for everybody. So for me, what's unstoppable is bringing more people with me as we grow and we break boundaries, and making sure that there's, a partnership with everyone who's around. Because you can always bring, you could choose to be alone and successful, or you can be with people and share it and celebrate. So to me, that makes me feel unstoppable.
Love that. You ready for my rapid fire? Yeah. I have some rapid fire of my own. All right. All my guests gets asked these questions, and it's interesting in hearing the answers. They're all different. Okay, so tell me you're Latina without telling me you're Latina.
Comida. It's all about the food.
Yes. What does it mean to you to be Latina?
To me, it means tradition. It means groundbreaking, and it means an immense amount of pride. All of that comes together because it's Latina. It's funny. I think when you look at Latina culture, the women really are so important, and it's such a big part, right? The family, the mom, abuela, all of the things that come with it. It's like there's a rock and a force, and you have to carry that with you, and that's your path to carry the strength.
Love that. What is this chapter of your life called?
Ooh, this chapter of my life is called The Runway.
I love that. Okay. What's one thing you need in the morning?
One thing I need in the morning is usually I like to do a crossword.
Really?
So something to wake up my brain. So I like the New York Times crossword.
Love that. What's your favorite Spanish food?
Oh, arroz con gandules.
Yes. If you had an opportunity to have the Last Supper with 3 Latinas, dead or alive, who would they be?
All right. So it is going to be Dolores Huerta. She's alive, and I've heard her speak, and she's amazing. I would want to see her and Jennifer hang out. So I'm going to put Jennifer at the table.
Yeah.
And then I think the third one I'd love to really get to know is Salma Hayek. I just always like, I feel like she just moves with such grace and dignity. And she's, again, someone who's had a long career and has made some incredible choices. And I feel like there's so much, ever since she did Frida and really pushed that film, I was like, man, I need to meet her and just know like what makes her.
That was powerful.
It's powerful.
Finish this sentence. Growing up Latina is?
Crazy.
Yes, it is.
But worth it.
What is something you would want to work on that you have not already?
For me, actually, what I'd love to do is spend a full Spanish immersion. Because it's hard when you're raised here, or like I'm raised here in first generation, and there was a lot of pressure on my parents when they moved here to be like, you're in America, speak English now, and it really impacted them growing up. And so even though we went to Puerto Rico every summer, we had, it's all like locked in there. Like, and so I practice Spanish every day, to get more comfortable. And I do, like, you'll see the moments where I'm like, okay, now I'm in a space and when I'm forced to, but I want to like fully, like, I need to challenge myself to do a full-on immersion, because then it'll just unlock. And it's like, when something's there, and it's great. When I'm in Spain, Mexico, like I even got the compliment from Mexico City. It was like they asked me if I was Mexican because my Spanish. I was like, oh wow, thank you. But it's something that I work at constantly, because I feel like the language and keeping that part is so important to me on a personal level, and I have to work at it, and that's okay. It's hard, but it means so much to me. And so I want to do that. I want to do a big old immersion and just like shake off that part of me that like needs to do that. And I had a great interview in Spanish for Telemundo, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also amazing, because it's also different too, of like the words you use for business and things are so different. And like understanding how to really put things in like the smaller chunks. So it's like so there's that growth, that next level where I'm not like translating in my head anymore, and just really I'm thinking more.
I love that.
In that way. So there's so much to learn about it, and I'm very excited, because it's the thing that scares me the most. So that's the thing I have to face.
I love that. Last question, and I feel like I already know the answer, but I just have to ask. It's like just one of those questions you have to ask. If you were to create a signature cocktail specifically for Jennifer Lopez, what would it be and why?
Okay, so it would be, I would actually love to make her something that is probably a like French 75 riff, because I think like the bubbles, I think there's something sparkling, so I would make probably a fruitier version of a French 75, but again, with that lower sugar, so really using like a really zero dosage champagne to top it off, something that's not going to have a lot of added sugar, just a little teaspoon of agave nectar, muddle in some beautiful fresh strawberries, use like a little bit of I would actually like to use Meyer lemon juice instead of regular lemon juice to add that softness, and then bubbles.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Lynnette.
Thank you.
Please let everyone know where they could find you, your social media handles, and all that good stuff.
At Drinks at 6, so DRINKSAT, the number 6. My website, LynetteMarrero.com. You can usually find and link through there. And yeah, so you'll find us at Delola on Instagram as well. So follow along our journey, and we'll see what year 2 comes up with.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on the show.